Hi, I'm Mate Jončović, the hybrid drummer. Today I'm here to tell you as much as I can about the Roland SPD-SX, or more specifically, the SPD-SX SE Special Edition, which is right here next to me. The Special Edition model has the same features as a normal SPD-SX, but it has 16 gigs of internal memory instead of 4, and it has a nice red color. So what is this video gonna be about? I'd like to start with the very basics, so some things might be obvious for those who already use the SPD-SX, but I got a lot of requests to talk about the fundamental features and programming of the pad. First, I'm gonna explain how all the buttons work. Then, we'll take a look at the back of the pad and examine all the inputs and outputs. And then I'm gonna show you how to handle the menus, like how to assign sounds, use effects, route the outputs, how to record samples, and so on. I will try to be as detailed as possible, but I will focus on the things that most users need to know. If there's something I left out, feel free to ask me in the comments. At the end of the video, I will show you the SPD-SX in action. Okay, now let's see what all these buttons are for. The most important is the power button. Believe it or not, if you hold it down for a second, it turns the device on, and later, if you hold it down for another second, it turns it off. Right next to it, we have a few volume knobs. Master is for setting the volume of the master output, so this is how you handle your levels towards the front of house mixer in a live situation, or towards the recording mixer in a studio environment. The phones knob only changes the volume in your earphones, which has an output at the back of the module. You can easily handle the volume of the internal metronome with the click knob. It's very useful to have direct access to the click. You can start or stop the metronome with this button, and this red light blinks in a certain BPM, so you can have visual reference of the tempo too. This section is for the effects. You can turn the effects on and off with these 4 buttons. One is for filtering, there's a delay and a short loop effect, which kinda slices up your sound. The fourth one, which says FX, can be a custom effect that you can choose from the menu. I will show this later. The big knobs are for changing the parameters of the effects in real time. The middle 3 buttons under the screen always have a different function, which is written on the bottom of the screen. This one says all sounds off. It immediately mutes everything on your pad. It can be helpful if some effects get too overwhelming, or if something goes wrong and you need to stop. Next to it, there is pad check. If you hold this and hit one of the pads, you can hear that pad sound only through the phone's output, so you can silently check what sample is assigned to that pad. This is the shift button at the same time, which has other functions. If you hold it down and press the plus or minus button, you can increase or decrease things in the menu and scroll through the kits faster. The big plus and minus buttons are for navigating between the kits or changing parameters in the menu. By pressing sampling, you enter the sampling menu, which I will explain later. With the quick button, you can access some functions easier from the main screen, and within the different menus, you can do some extra settings with it. The menu button opens up the most complex part of the SPD-SX, where you can make all the settings. In the menu, you can navigate with these 4 arrows and enter a certain part with the enter button. The exit button takes you one step back in the menu system, but if you press kit, you immediately get back to the main screen. So now that you understand how this part of the module works, let's take a look at the back, where all the cables go. As you can see, there are a lot of in and outputs here, so let's see them one by one. DC in is where you have to plug the dedicated Roland adapter to power up the SPD-SX. This part is for USB connection. Memory is where you can put your USB stick with your samples and import them from there. The other one is a USB-B connector, which is for connecting a computer. With the help of a computer, you can also save samples to the internal memory of the SPD-SX, or you can start using it as a MIDI and audio interface. It means that the pad can function as a sound card, or via MIDI you can play and record different software drum machines, or control functions in your DAW, for example start and stop loops in Ableton Live. The MIDI in and out connectors are for dedicated MIDI cables. You can find MIDI to USB cables too, which makes it easier to connect to your computer. Audio in is where you can connect any sound source, like a mobile phone, a music player, a synthesizer, or a microphone, to record samples straight to the module and play them back from there. The gain knob is to set the level of your input. For example, a microphone needs a different gain level than an MP3 player. I will show this later in the video. Let's jump to the master out part. This is the main stereo output for recording or connecting to a PA system. The great feature of the SPD-SX is that it has another stereo output called sub-out. Within the module, you can set the routing of the pads. For example, if you use the SPD-SX as a backing track player, you can route the click track to the sub-out and the backing track to the main out, and that way the click won't be heard on the PA, only in your in-ear monitor. Or for example, I use this when recording drums, and by routing some sounds to the sub-out, some to the master out, I get better mixing possibilities. The phones out is for your earphones. There are two stereo trigger inputs for extra hitting surfaces or triggers. These can be splitted with a Y cable into 4 mono inputs. Foot switch is for additional features which can help you during playing, because you can handle it with your feet. You can change between kits, tap tempo, turn effects on and off, or start and stop the click, for example, with a foot switch. This little thing here is to help you lead the power cable nicely. So these were some important things to know before turning the module on. Now let's go and take a look at the menus and the settings. Turn on the module and press menu. There are 6 menu points. The first is kit. Press enter. Here you can make some basic settings on the current kit. Volume, a dedicated tempo for this kit, so whenever you press the click button, it will start playing in the right tempo for this kit. You can increase and decrease these values with the plus and minus buttons. For some strange reason, the tempo setting in the SPD-SX goes in decimal values, so it can be a bit annoying and slow to set the right tempo, but if you hold down the shift button and press the plus or minus, you can set it in whole numbers. Pad link is a very important thing for backing tracks. You can set 2 pads to start at the same time with it. For example, if you assign the backing track of a song to pad 1 and its click track in a WAV file to pad 2, you can start them simultaneously by hitting any of the 2 pads. You can navigate in the menu with these arrows, so in case of pad link, you need to navigate to the right to set the second pad. By pressing these function buttons, you can turn to a different page within a menu. This was the kit common part. Let's go to the output settings. Here you can set the routing of the pads one by one by hitting a different pad, or you can navigate with the right and left arrows too. For example, in the previous case with the backing tracks, you should keep pad 1 on the master output, but set pad 2 to the sub-out or phones only. Sub-out is useful when the other band members are also listening to the click while playing, because that way you can connect the sub-out to the front of house mixer, and from there the sound engineer can send the click back to anyone's in-ear. Routing the sound through kit FX 1 or 2 means that if you have turned on any effects in the kit FX menu, which I will show later, it automatically activates that on the given pad. In the MIDI page, you can set the MIDI notes for each pad, which is important when sending MIDI signals to another device or to your computer. For example, if you play back sounds from a sampler in a DAW, like Ableton Live or Logic, you need to assign a MIDI note to every sound to have the proper connection. External control has to be turned on in this case, and then the onboard sounds won't be transmitted anymore, but the sounds from your external device. Now press exit and go to the pad menu. Press right and enter. This is the part where you can assign sounds to the pads and make changes in their settings. The first line is the actual sound sample you assign. For faster navigation to the right, hold down the plus button, and after that hold the minus. To navigate faster to the left, do the opposite. Or you can also hold down the shift button and press plus or minus. This way it increases the value by 10 at one press. If you go down, you can change the volume or the pan. Panning means whether a sound is coming from the left or from the right. Mute group is a cool function. You can put pads in a group which mute each other when any of them is played. It's useful, for example, if you play harmonies or bass sounds, because by muting each other, they won't interfere. Tempo sync is very helpful when you have a loop in a certain tempo, but you'd like to practice it faster or slower. If you turn it on and change the kit tempo, the module will time stretch and synchronize it with the new tempo. If it's turned off and the tempo is changed, the loop will be out of sync. Let's switch to the mode page with the middle function button. You can turn the looping on for any sound, that way it will repeat itself forever. But you can choose to repeat it twice, 4 times or 8 times. Trigger type can have two options, shut or alt. Shut always starts the sample, but if you set it to alt, it turns to the alternating mode. It means that if you hit the pad, the sample starts, and if you hit it again, it stops. It's useful in case of longer samples. You can turn off the dynamics of a pad, that way it will always play on its maximum volume. If it's on, the module reacts to how hard you hit. Poly or mono mode means if you hit a pad repeatedly, it mutes the previous samples in mono mode, and it lets the sounds overlay on top of each other in poly mode. On the sub page, you can layer another sound to your main sample. It has nothing to do with the sub output that I mentioned earlier. This sound goes out where the pad is routed in the kit menu. You can also set the volume and panning of this second layer. Let's exit and go to the kit effects menu. You can dedicate 2 effects for each kit, and in the kit menu, you can send the pads to FX1 or FX2 or none, as I showed you earlier. There are 20 different effects, each have a lot of parameters to change. You can modulate your sound in many ways with these, so you need to try them. I will show you a few. The next menu is System. You have some important settings here, let's check them out. The first is the master effect. The master effects are these 4 effects here, which have dedicated buttons to quickly turn them on or off while playing. Choose between them by the right and left arrows and set the type with the plus and minus. If you press the quick button here and enter Master FX Edit, you can make more detailed adjustments for these effects. The other option in the quick menu, System Initialize, sets the values back to the original. By the way, you have this quick menu option in all the other menus. If you made too many changes and want to go back to the original position, you can initialize the settings. Exit from the master effects and move down to click. Here you can adjust the sound and subdivision and panning of the built-in metronome. In the output page, you can route the click to the master out, the sub out, or to the phones only. It's useful when you are using the internal metronome on a gig and don't want the audience to hear it. Well, sometimes it wouldn't be bad if they heard it, at least they wouldn't speed up when clapping in a part where there are no drums playing. Okay, let's go back and see the next menu, Audio In, Out. You can adjust the volume of the audio input, which is at the back of the module as I showed you before. USB in volume is used when you are connected to a computer and playing back music from there. With sub-out volume, you can adjust the overall level of the sub-out output a bit more. In the output page, you can route the audio input. It's important in case you use the SPD-SX as your in-ear mixer, because then you get your monitor away from the front of house or from the monitor mixer into the audio input, but you don't want to send it back because that will sound strange. So route it to the phones only, and then only you will hear it. There are routing possibilities for FX2, the second kit effect also. Press the third function button to enter the EQ page. This is the master EQ for the audio input. Now exit and enter the kit chain menu. Kit chains are helpful when you play a show and use more kits during that gig, and your kits are not organized according to the set list, or the set list is changed. Create a kit chain and turn it on, and from there you will only need to press the plus or minus to navigate between the kits you are using at that show. Let's go back and see the next menu, pad/foot switch control. Here you can assign control parameters to the foot switches or the external triggers or to any pad. These control functions are next kit, previous kit, click start or stop, tap tempo, all sounds off, and FX1 and FX2 on or off. With the help of these, you can control a lot of stuff with your sticks and don't need to press any buttons on the module. There's one more menu within the system options, visual control. It's a bit more advanced stuff when you control visuals with the SPD-SX. I might explain this in another video. Now let's exit from here and move on to the setup menu. First, you can adjust the parameters of the LCD screen. Set contrast and brightness the way it feels good for your eyes. Pad indicate is for these small LEDs under each pad. In dynamic mode, the blinking follows the dynamics of the sound. For example, in case of a click track, it blinks in sync with the tempo. In state mode, the lights just stay on, for example, in case of a loop. You can turn all the lights on if you want. Tempo indicate is the blinking of the tempo LED next to the click knob. It's always in sync with the kit tempo. Display mode has two options, level or subname. If you switch to subname, you can enter a name for a kit in 2 rows. Press exit and go to the pad sense menu. Here you can set the threshold and sensitivity of each pad or trigger. With threshold, you can basically set the lightest hit that triggers the pad. It can be set higher when, for example, the acoustic drums or the vibrations on a stage mistrigger one of your pads. With sensitivity, you can adjust the dynamics of the pad to react better to the way you hit it. The next is trigger in. If you split one of the trigger inputs into 2 with a Y cable, you need to set the input mode to trig ×2. And if you use a dual zone trigger or pad, set it to head and rim. It's very important to set the trigger type for your external pads to make them work the best. You can choose from all the Roland triggers and pads and pedals. If you exit and go to the next menu, you can set the polarity of your foot switches. The next in the setup menu is MIDI options. Here the most commonly needed option is the local control. If you turn it off, the onboard sounds are not gonna be played anymore, only the sounds from the device you are connected to. The last one in this section is the option menu. Here, if you turn padlock on, you cannot make adjustments in the pad settings like changing sounds or volume. The default setting for auto off is 4 hours. It means if you don't touch the SPD-SX for 4 hours, it will turn off. You can turn this setting off if you want. Next is USB mode. If you connect the device to a computer via USB, you have 2 options for this. Wave Manager mode is needed when you want to use the Wave Manager or the SPD-SX editor software, and audio/MIDI mode is needed when you use it as a sound card. Okay, now exit to the main menu and enter the last menu called Util. Here you can check out your wave list. If you enter and press the quick menu, you can sort the samples by different orders or rename, delete, and export them to a USB stick. Wave import is where you import samples from a USB stick. If you press enter, it opens the files on your stick. Press the plus button to choose the samples you'd like to import and press enter. After that, you can choose the pad you'd like that sample to be assigned to. You can load and save all your settings to a USB stick, which is really helpful if you are traveling somewhere and you can get an SPD-SX there, because it's enough if you take your USB stick only and you can load everything to that other SPD-SX. The last menu is Information. Here you can see the remaining memory capacity and the software version and the serial number of your device. If you press the Kit button and exit to the main screen of the SPD-SX, there is one more thing that can help you: the quick menu. You can easily turn the kit chain on and off and get access to some important settings like copying and pasting a pad or kit or renaming the kit. Now that we are finished with the different menus, I'd like to talk a bit about sampling. You can record sounds directly from an external device, which is connected to the audio input. I will show you the easiest and most common way of this. I'm connecting my phone to the audio input. This is gonna be my external sound source. Press the sampling button and choose the multi-mode. Press enter and you will see the input levels. You can adjust this with the gain knob next to the audio input. Make sure it's not overdriven. Once you have it, start hitting the pads to record slices of the music. And now for the end, let me give you a few demonstrations on how the SPD-SX works in action. Example 1, using it as a standalone electronic drum kit. Example 2, using it for backing tracks and playing along with the acoustic kit.
Electromagnetized intensity, though it's a lie what you pretend to be. I love it all and I'm jonesing for more. Fell on your stage and my story is what you perform. My gut's churning out all the ifs and buts, but if I drop the ball on this shit then what? Congratulations, you find you a sin and duck. Man, this really sucks, must be my shitty luck.
Example 3, building it into your acoustic kit and creating a hybrid sound. I hope I could help you with this video to get to know the Roland SPD-SX more, and now you can let your creativity flow and have a lot of fun. If you found this tutorial useful, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.